King Solomon, the wisest king of Israel. The great King David had ruled Israel for many years, leading the nation through war and triumph, always seeking after God's heart. But as his time on earth came to an end, the kingdom needed a new ruler. Among his many sons, David chose Solomon, a young prince who was not a warrior like his father, but had a heart filled with humility and devotion. When Solomon ascended to the throne, he felt the weight of his responsibility. He was now the ruler of God's chosen people, yet he knew he lacked the wisdom to lead such a great nation. The burden was heavy, but one night something miraculous happened. As Solomon lay in his royal chambers, he was visited by the Lord in a dream. A voice mighty and filled with power, yet gentle as a whisper, spoke to him. "Ask for whatever you want, and I will give it to you." The young king could have asked for anything: riches beyond measure, the destruction of his enemies, or a long life filled with pleasure and comfort. But Solomon's heart was set on something greater. He knelt in humility and replied, "Lord, I am but a child, and I do not know how to lead your people. Grant me wisdom and understanding so that I may govern them justly." God was pleased. "Because you have asked for wisdom instead of riches or power, I will give you a wise and understanding heart, greater than any who have come before or will come after. And because your request was pure, I will also bless you with wealth and honor, unlike any king before you." When Solomon awoke, he knew that his prayer had been answered. But soon his wisdom would be tested in a way that all of Israel would never forget. The two mothers and the baby. One day, two women were brought before Solomon in the royal court, their faces etched with grief and desperation. Each woman held on to a child, one living, one lifeless. The crowd murmured as the case was presented before the king. The first woman stepped forward, tears streaming down her face. "My lord," she pleaded, "this woman and I live in the same house. We both gave birth to sons. But in the night, she rolled over on her child, and he died. Then she switched our babies while I slept. When I awoke, I saw that the dead child was not mine." The second woman crossed her arms and shook her head. "That's a lie. The living child is mine. The dead one is hers." The court fell silent. There was no witness to the truth. How could anyone know who was speaking honestly? But Solomon, filled with the wisdom God had given him, sat quietly and thought. Then he raised his hand and called for a sword. A gasp rippled through the crowd. "Cut the baby in two," Solomon commanded, "and give each woman half." The second woman nodded coldly. "Yes, divide him. If I can't have him, neither shall she." But the first woman dropped to her knees, her face stricken with horror. "No, my lord, please do not harm the child. Give him to her. Just let him live." At that moment, Solomon smiled knowingly. He lowered his hand and declared, "Do not harm the child. Give him to the first woman. She is his true mother." A wave of awe swept through the court. News of Solomon's wisdom spread throughout Israel, and people from far and wide came to hear his judgments. The Golden Age of Israel. Under Solomon's rule, Israel flourished like never before. The young king oversaw the construction of the magnificent temple of the Lord, a place where God's presence would dwell among his people. He expanded the kingdom's wealth, established peace with neighboring nations, and wrote thousands of proverbs and songs filled with wisdom. Yet as the years passed and his kingdom prospered, Solomon faced his greatest challenge, not from an enemy outside, but from within his own heart. His love for foreign women led him astray, and he allowed their gods into Israel, turning his heart away from the one who had given him everything. In the end, Solomon's story serves as both an inspiration and a warning. Wisdom and blessings are gifts from God, but true faithfulness is what keeps a heart steadfast. Solomon's rise and fall remind us that even the wisest among us must guard our hearts and remain faithful to the Lord. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and knowledge of the Holy One is understanding. Proverbs 9:10.